Okay, so with pyramid pose and warrior one, there's a lot of similarities because the three platforms, the feet and the hips are in the same position. We have the back foot with a slight angle towards the front. We're lined up, they say heel to heel. So our other foot can come out a little bit more, but we're lined up heel to heel. Yeah. And then the hips, like in pyramid pose, we have them both facing forward. So it's called inward rotation because the thigh is rotating inwards towards the middle line of the body. If it was warrior two, where we have the foot out, it's an outward rotation because the hip is opening. So warrior one is an inward rotation of the thigh, which brings our hips forward. The front knee, we're bending in over our ankle, and then in the platform of our shoulders, we come up. So instead of pyramid pose, where we have our hands behind our back, and we're opening our heart, this one, our heart is really in a neutral position. You can open up your heart if you come into a back bend, but this one, we're really focusing on dropping the shoulders away from the ears. So that way, we're focusing more on the trapezius muscles versus the heart. We're focusing on the back body. So coming here, we want to bring the knee just a little bit further forward. So that we have a nice right angle in our knee. And so what I was saying with Iyengar, if this was a difficult pose for someone, he would actually bring a chair to have you sit on. Yeah, it would make it way easier.
Someone told me I should always be able to see my toes. Is that not true?
Not necessarily. You're supposed to have your knee over your ankle in line with your middle or second toe. So then that way, you're not splaying your knee outward or inward. Because when you have your knee and you like splay it open, look at what's happening to the arch of my foot.
Yeah.
I don't have any power coming from my bottom toe. And my arch is raised and it actually like starts to cause a lot of pain. Or if I have my knee like reaching towards my big toe, then I lose power underneath my toe. So when you hear the rooting practice in yoga, they always say like pick up your toes. So try it while you're in warrior one, pick up your toes. Do you feel the activation of your arch?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also is activating the muscles along the front of your leg. And so when you're doing this rooting technique, you're actually focusing on the 4 points of balance in our feet. So 2 in the heel, and then 1 under the pinky and 1 under the root. We lift up our arch and we have a nice gap there. And then they say like spread your toes, first putting your pinky and your big toe down. Spread, 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 spread. And then we try and put our 3 toes down. Because the
big toe.
Yeah. So the idea of that is to
I'm trying to get any weight on my toes.
The idea is to put weight in the metatarsals. So these are the tarsals, right? You want to have them in the metatarsals. Because that's where like the foundation of our feet are. They're saying really, our power shouldn't come from our toes. It should come up from the base of our toes. So rotating again a little further, inward, 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 yeah. And when we have that, we want to try not to lose the connection in our Achilles, so that way you feel a nice stretch coming into the back of our leg. So for like yoga teachers doing different modifications, right? Like some people will come and like step on the back of your heel. I don't really like doing that. I like working more with my hands. So pressing the heel down so that you're getting right into your Achilles. It also helps with the reflexology point into the spleen. So that's another reason why I like working with my hands, to get into the reflexology points. And like yoga teachers could also help with bringing the rotation in by kind of doing one of these movements to help direct the thigh into an inward rotation. Don't forget to relax your shoulders away from your ears. There you go. That's nicer. So what you're doing when you give that cue, you're dropping the trapezius muscles down the spine, away from your ears.
Like someone told me to stretch like in my back and
So holding that just for a moment, just to allow yourself to really feel the pose, to really allow yourself to get into it and feel the benefits of each pose. So bringing the inward rotation of your thigh. Yeah, there you go. And then bending in, activating the rooting technique, so activating the arch.
If my foot's coming off, should I put my stance shorter?
You can do one of two things. You can either take a shorter stance or simply just move your foot a little bit further forward. Like wider. So it's not lined up heel to heel. It's like the front heel is just a little bit past. Yeah. That's better to open up the stance rather than shortening the stance, in my opinion, because it also helps bring in the hip rotation. And then you can send your hands up when you feel ready. Yep, relaxing the shoulders away from the ears. So activate your front foot. So you're lifting up the toes again. There you go. And then spreading wide and relaxing the toes down. So you're activating your arch.
No, where they go?
There you go. Activating your abs as well. Drawing down, drawing down, drawing down, drawing down. Now we'll come into some opening of the hip poses. So pyramid pose relates to triangle pose as warrior 1 translates to warrior 2. So with pyramid pose, we now take that stance and we open up the back of our foot. I should probably do it the other way because I'm demonstrating more on this side. So we open up the back of the foot. The idea with triangle pose is that it's a shorter distance than we do warrior 2. Warrior 2 we take up a lot more space. So triangle pose is shorter. Now we have to look at the placement of the hips. A lot of teachers have different perspectives on where they think it should be. For me, since I focus more of the Hatha, the Iyengar style, where it's listen to your own body, I don't focus on the hips until we get into the full pose. So from here, like in brain gym, where we're isolating from the hips upward, what I like to do as a cue is we rise our hands, then we kind of come back just a little bit, and then we send forward, becoming really, really long in our body before we drop down. And you could drop your hand, obviously, to your ankle, to your knee, wherever you feel right. Yeah. So now that you're in the pose, we want to have a open rotation. So we're actually having, you're actually having an outward rotation of your thigh. So this is drawing up and back, and your hips now come forward a little bit more. The energy of this hip is almost like tucking under and in. And yeah, this energy comes from the knees and wraps back into the sciatic. I also had a teacher which I really loved. I really loved in North Carolina, where she would like sit hip to hip, and she would bring one hand cupping the shoulder, one hand cupping the knee, and just kind of pull.
Yeah, that feels really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice because what it does here is it opens up the oblique muscles. And so this pose, because we have our hips open and we're reaching down, the idea is to create length through the obliques, create length through the open body. That same teacher would then tell me, from here, you want to make sure, you hear a lot of yoga teachers say one hand over the other, but she would say, imagine that our shoulders are acting as a pole and we are trying to dance around it so that we have this movement and we're arching, 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 and creating almost like we're wrapping around the pole, wrapping our body around the pole. So that way we open up our hips. Sorry, we don't open up our hips. We open up our obliques. We open up our side body. Holding, holding, holding. So there's a slight torsion in this pose. Yeah, come over more where you can see me. There's a slight torsion in this pose because this, you could have your obliques open, but if you bring in the consciousness of just from your ribs, from your chest, and twisting it open, almost as if you're drawing this shoulder forward, you get a much deeper twist and you're able to feel the line coming across the front.
Lots of pain right here.
Okay, so right there, that is the bottom half of our hamstrings. So you might want to try taking a shorter stance, or you might want to try coming up higher a little bit more. Yeah.
Like I find it when I'm in this or when I'm in forward fold, not forward fold, but splits forward fold.
Okay.
What's that called?
Like standing split?
No. Like whenever I'm in this.
Oh, wide-legged
so
pose.
much pain.
Okay.
I can't go any deeper because or I have to bend that knee to get rid of that crazy discomfort.
Yeah, you can have one thing that it might be a sign of hyperextension. Because when we have straightness in our legs, sometimes this is hyperextension. It means that the energy of the knee is pushing backwards.
Yeah, that's really what it feels like.
Yeah, so then that's hyperextension. So the way that you have to be conscious is to soften the knee.
That's awesome when I do it. Just kind of give it a little bend.
Yeah, a little bend. It's that little bend is taking you out of hyperextension and making your legs still be straight. Yeah, so that's actually perfect of what you're doing.
But then I feel like I don't have the right pose because then I have a little bit of.
But the thing is, the leg is straight. There is no it's because it's,
You can't see that my leg isn't straight right now.
No. It looks straight because the hyperextension just is a slight activation. I used to be a hyperextender in my plank poses. I used to go like this with my elbows forward. This is hyperextension of the arms. So I would always have to turn my elbows in, and I'd be like, I can't do it, I can't do it, I cannot do it. I am bending my arms. And literally, I remember being at my yoga teacher training and then being like, no, it's in your mind. Your arms look great. And I was like, no, they're so bent. And after a while, it took me to readjust, but that's the proper positioning of the body.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can go to the other side. So the back foot is straight.
Yeah, because I push my leg in.
Yep.
It should really be like that.
Yeah, that's perfect positioning.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we become long, 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 growing, and then fall. Yeah. So we're going to come back through in outer rotation, pushing into the bottom hip, pulling up the upper hip and the shoulder cups. Bring your arm a little further. Yeah, that's over the shoulder. To warrior two. So the platform is the same, right? Here they say now the heel, the front heel, lines up to the middle of the back foot, like to the arch of the back foot. Our hips are nice and open. We bend through the front knee. And like I said, warrior two, you really take a wider stance. We make sure that front knee is over the ankle in line with our second toes, and then we open our arms wide. Yeah, you can take your your palms up, or I read this really beautiful book where it says the left hand should always be upward and the right hand downward. It says this way because the left hand is the hand in which you receive from, and the right hand is the hand in which you give. So what you receive from God is what you give to earth. So, and then with this, now in the second platform, we're focusing on engaging the stomach so that we're with the right, we're in a neutral hip, even though we're from an open position, and then our hands come forward. Checking into the knee. We're going to bend that knee just a little bit. So bend. Yeah, that should be fine. So engage your abdomen as well, so that way you can lose a little bit of this curvature. Yeah. And then you'll feel that this leg is outwardly rotating. One thing we want to make sure is when we're here, we don't want to lose space. So we don't want the ankle to start caving inward. So just kind of like think about actively engaging the arch and just creating more space so that the ankle doesn't fall, doesn't cave. Let's pose it up here. Looks like you know it very well. So just checking the alignment of your front knee as well to see if it's in line between like the second and third toe, or see if there's a slight splaying of the knee. I've been saying like making sure of the rotation of the back thigh, but also it's kind of like from the belly. So that way, like as I was saying, there's like a slight isolation from the hip that we're like open as well. So if you'll see here, like it looks like I'm open completely being here, but when I activate the abs, like it helps bring a slight movement. So yoga is very based on looking at the details and looking at the alignment and focusing on the subtlety. The subtlety is how we get into the spirit, right? So first we'll do half moon pose. So utilizing that rooting technique, we're pulling up the toes. Then once we feel like we've got our bases is down, we stretch our toes wide and place them. We're going to come with one hand, outstretch our hands, and we feel the openness of our hips, and we start to come down, with control, and just maybe touch your where we would need a block, but seeing as we don't have blocks, we will use...
Because I need a block because I'm like leaning too forward.
Yeah, we'll use a piece. So the reason why I'm going to have you use the block is one, because when you were here in the pose, you were one, trying to come too far forward, and then two, your body was caving.
Yeah.
So like your hip was caving, your shoulder was caving, just so that you would be able to get your hand down to the ground. So I want you to have a block so that you can find the stability, find the strength in the obliques to open, be present here, and then maybe once you get that muscle memory, you can, your pose can just look like this without the block. So the modifications for Ardha Chandrasana is the same as triangle pose.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Like fire on my leg.
Yeah. So the idea is to cup around the shoulders, have the hips come up, the outward rotation, and the hand comes up, 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 up. Yeah. Good. Hold it for as long as you can and then gracefully come down. So this foot should actually come forward a little bit more as well. Sorry. Yeah, kind of be like here.
Okay.
Yeah. There you are. That was getting some muscle memory.
Oh, that's fire.
Yeah. Then you can come to the other side.
Right.
Opening up the hips, open, open.
Down.
So that's,
So I should open before I go down.
yeah, if you can. So when you struggle with stability, if you'll notice, it's actually coming from your ankle. There's weakness in your ankle. You want to really make sure that your arch is nice and stable, that you're really using the point of,
I can lean to the back of my foot.
yeah, so you lean to the outer edge. You really want to like strengthen the inner part of your foot. Just rotate, 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 rotate. There you go. That's a nice twist. One of them. There you're opening at the bottom. And perfect. That looks great. Good. So that's Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. When we come into Warrior 3, we're returning back to a closed hipped pose. So that was open. When we so we're in Warrior 2, right? When we come to Warrior 3, we start to close. We come in like a crescent pose, where we're just on our toes, and then we push from our toes, stabilizing, strengthening our knee, and we come up, 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 lifting through both ends. There. Just have the hip lower down, inner rotation, inner rotation. So the hip comes down, but the foot still is reaching upward. Yeah, we just come down in the hip. So it's angling the hip forward. Okay. Do you think you're hyperextending through your standing knee?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so if you think you're hyperextending through your standing knee, you have to unlock that and you have to like do the slight bend. That'll also help create more stability in the foot.
Is my knee bent right now?
It's not bent. Yeah, it always feels like it's
It
bent.
feels like a super bent. It feels like I'm doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. But now that you've unlocked that, I see the engagement so much more in your quads. So continue to focus on stabilizing, bringing energy, stabilizing, utilizing the arch, coming down through the front of the toes. Yeah, that's the point of where the stabilization needs to come from. So that's why they say the rooting technique is really good, because it pushes you into the toes.
Is my knee bent?
No, looks good. Yes, I actually see that you're having problems with stabilization because your whole knee is like this. Because you're not utilizing the inner side of your foot, you're super overcompensating on the back edge, so your knee is like shoo, your whole leg is like shoo, and that's why it almost looks like this hip is higher when you're in the pose. So, yeah. That's where your focus is going to be in this pose of like really trying to focus in through the toe, you're closing in through your hips. That's better. You had it just for a moment and then you kind of went back. But yeah, that's where your meditation is in this pose.